What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday, July the 8th to everybody out there. What's going on, Buster? What's going on, Corey? Hopefully, you guys are doing good. Glad to see you guys here. I am your co host. I am the Bear. I am John Bear, along with my co host, that Matt85. What's going on, buddy?
Hey there, and something fun to add to the beginning of today's show. I got a question for you. If you were watching this not live like we are right now, but on YouTube, and you liked what we are doing, what would you, as a viewer, do to show us that you like what you're doing?
Make sure to go to the channel, Bear Side of the Mat on YouTube. Matt, if you could drop a link, that'd be awesome. Go for it.
Yeah, let me do that.
Make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Make sure to like every video that you watch and make sure you comment as well. It would help us out a ton. We should be uploading this video as well as last week's episode, which I have not uploaded to YouTube yet, but I will very, very soon. Do I have something in my beard? That's weird. I don't know.
Sorry to be blunt about that, but I thought it'd be fun to get a little promo at the beginning of our show here.
But absolutely, if you guys have not subbed to us on YouTube, make sure to go ahead and do so there. We would really appreciate it. We're going to start off our show today with a little bit of a history lesson for all the fans out there. On this day in history, I looked up a little bit of stuff. There's not a whole lot that happened on July 8th in many years. So I went the route of finding something that happened in TNA. And on July 8th in the year 2012, Austin Aries became the Total Nonstop Action before it became just Impact Wrestling. He became the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He defeated Bobby Roode for the title in the main event of their Destination X pay-per-view show. And I'll be honest with you, I was watching quite a bit during this time. TNA Impact on TV were having some really good episodes. Austin Aries was on fire. He was having great matches with pretty much everybody, and he hadn't. Not to try to speak ill on Austin Aries. I mean, as great of a performer that he really is, he's burned a lot of his bridges around the wrestling world, unfortunately. And this was before he's kind of done that, with everywhere. But this was definitely a good time. This was a great match. I think Dave Meltzer gave this a 4.5 out of 5 star rating as well. So if you guys do want to go look out for that match, I believe it's in 2 parts on YouTube. It's a great match, and I don't know if you were watching TNA at the time, but I remember I was watching it, and I was watching like one of those pay-per-view completely illegal streams. and I watched this live right before I went to work at my previous job, and dude, it was a good time, man. It was a good show, and it was a good moment.
The funny thing about TNA is I had resisted it for a long time, just as why do I care? Why am I going to watch this? And right when I started to actually want to watch it, because the few times I did, I was seeing stuff I liked, was about when Matt and Jeff Hardy were just getting ready to leave to go to WWE, and then I stopped watching again. But
this
looking back at a lot of
this a couple years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, but they were doing good stuff even then. But looking back, like you point out this match, and just hearing every once in a while just different great matches, different great talents, whether they were because my first impression of TNA was that they were getting a lot of WWE's cast-offs, not just when WWE didn't use them right, but when they were legit not really fit to wrestle anymore. So that was my initial impression. But once I got to check them out a bit more, they had younger talent like Austin Aries and Bobby Roode before they were in WWE, and apparently they were used better then than they were in WWE, I guess is a good way to put it.
Well, I thought Roode was used pretty well in NXT, but since he got called up to the main roster, it's just gone away.
Is he one of the people that is still with the company or got released?
He is still with the company. He's just not being utilized. I know he got suspended for 30 days a few months back, but I mean that's been long done with. So I guess they're just not using. I think he actually is stuck in Canada during the whole
Oh,
travel stuff. So
that
I think that's a
very
big
well
reason why.
possible.
Yeah. So and it's funny that you talk about something like this because we had a conversation a while back before the I think the Double or Nothing pay per view that AEW recently had, and we were talking about how you had John Moxley against Brody Lee for the World Heavyweight title in AEW, and people are complaining. And it's like, why does AEW keep putting titles on these former WWE guys? And I think our opinion, we pretty much shared the same opinion on it. We were just pretty much just like, look, it's hard to find somebody who didn't wrestle for WWE previously, or Ring of Honor, or Impact, or New Japan. I mean, rest, wrestling is so vast, so you're seeing so many people that have been in so many different promotions. You can't just push somebody, or you can't just not push somebody because, like, oh, they used to be in WWE. So,
Yeah, not just that, but from any wrestling company, whether I'm watching or whether I own it, I want to see the best of the best wrestling. And if you're a company, you want to get the best of available. And that's as in right now, not they were the best and we just want them as a big name. Uh, or the other way around, they're the best, but nobody's heard of them, so we don't want
yeah,
them. I just want the best of the best. I want to see those matchups.
absolutely.
That's what's really important, not their history. Unless, I mean, to say that you're reusing someone from their history would just be if you have the same exact character. Uh, like if I'd say like Moxley's a bit different than Ambrose was, mostly because he's a little more free to do what he wants and say what he wants, and doesn't have to go by dumb gimmicks or storylines that somebody's feeding him.
No, and I,
Uh,
I and I think the WWE's version of Dean Ambrose, um, Moxley wanted. I think this is the vision that Moxley had for the character, and he can make a funny quip every once in a while. But he was, whenever he was a Dean Ambrose character, until the very end, which, oh my god, that was an abomination. And he's gone on the record to say that once you had me stick a needle in my butt on live TV, that my character is pretty much dead. But before that, that character was pretty much just a comedy character who they build as like kind of wacky and kind of unpredictable, and now he's viewed as a legit, like, don't mess with this guy because he can beat you up.
yeah, but yeah, what it comes down to is I just want to see the best of the best, and if you can't have literally the top, 100 wrestlers in the same company, then whoever you can get that is the best, that's who you should have in your company, and that's what it boils down to.
I agree with that 100%. It's not necessarily who you were, it's how you're being used as well. That's a big deal.
Hmm.
Next segment on the show is what are you watching in wrestling? Matt, what have you been watching this week aside from the current product?
Well, funny
Although
that you mentioned that.
it sounds like Raw was really good this week.
Raw, yes, I went back and watched Raw. We should talk about that later. But what I have to tell you about today, this week, is let's say you like AEW, but you wish that there was more than just a 2 hour long show once a week. Well, actually, there is. There's AEW Dark. It
Yes,
is
there
free
is.
on YouTube. And you might be saying to yourself, these are quote unquote dark matches. The quality probably isn't that good. It's probably people that you don't want to see. And I got to tell you, that's wrong. I've recently been checking this out for those exact same reasons. I wanted to get a little bit more AW. I noticed there were characters that I wanted to see that weren't showing up like hardly ever on the regular show. But I did know that they were getting time on Dark. Uh, and I also was thinking, these are probably just throwaway show matches, squash matches, or whatever. So why am I going to bother? Well, just looking at the past 3 weeks, here's some of the people that were on AEW Dark: Lucha Brothers, Sean Spears, Brian Pillman Jr., Luther, Big Swole, Orange Cassidy, Michael Nakazawa, one of my new favorites, Pineapple Pete, Lance Archer, Scorpio Sky, Dusty Rhodes, Young Bucks,
Wait,
Brian Cage, Sonny Kiss,
you mean Dustin Rhodes?
Dusty. Sorry,
I was
I
gonna
did.
say,
Yeah, I did say that
Jesus.
wrong. I did say that wrong. Yeah, Dark Order and Jurassic Express. I mean, besides being people that are cool, there are also a lot of people that are on the main cast, the main shows too. They have some some stars that get most of their matches on AEW Dark. People that I want to watch, and that's the place to watch them. Like, I like watching Sonny Kiss. I like watching Sean Spears. I like watching Michael Nakazawa now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen his matches?
Not yeah. They're not necessarily for me, but I understand that some people do like him.
I might get a
I
little.
don't dislike the guy. Just not my
It
style.
might get a little bit old, but watching one of his matches was pretty fun, at least for the first time.
Yeah,
This is also where you go if you want to see Taz on commentary.
that's very true.
Um, for me, I know there's only so much wrestling I can watch in a week, but having a couple of AEW shows and a couple of WWE shows and the pay-per-views, that's probably what I want to watch. Maybe at some point in time, I might add a little bit to that. I know if NWA, yeah, NWA was putting on good shows with their YouTube stuff too.
Yeah,
Especially with Damian Sandow or whatever his new name would be.
I believe Aaron Stevens.
Yeah, he might be
Yeah.
going by his real name. So that was fun to watch too when that was on. But it really is just like AEW, except that it's free and on YouTube. It's just an extend. I mean, that's how they filmed it too. Is they would do an hour for, because if you're going to one of the shows, you didn't just want to show up for a 2-hour show with commercial breaks. They want to fill you in. They get you for the 3 hours, plus they might have some other bits of entertainment while you're walking in or whatever.
Yeah,
So they film it just like it's a regular show, and the whole company is not. It's full of people that really want to leave an impression, do their best, and work their way up in the card. So it's not people just with throwaway matches. Granted, there are some squash matches, but that's not any different than the regular show. If you like AEW, AEW Dark on YouTube, which they put out videos Tuesday,
yeah.
is something to check out for sure.
And not only that, like AEW Dark, from what I can tell, they still have storylines, so it's not as if they're not, they're ignoring the stuff on main TV, and a lot of that does spill onto AEW Dynamite. The Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela pairing, I believe, started on AEW Dark. We saw a lot of a few weeks ago, before QT Marshall was taking a quick hiatus, but QT Marshall and the former Bunny Allie had a pairing on AEW Dark that spilled over into Dynamite. And Cody's in a really funny moment of Dynamite a few weeks ago was Cody's making this big speech, and he's making this big speech in the ring, and Brandy's at ringside like clapping and everything, whereas QT Marshall and Allie are just like looking at each other, like almost making out, and Brandy's like, "Hey," like start smacking. It was like, and there's like, "What? I'm sorry, I'm just talking to her," or whatever. So it's pretty funny, and I'm curious how where that's gonna end up going. But we're seeing a lot of that on Dark.
And if you're a fan of Orange Cassidy like I am, apparently he's had several matches on Dark, matches that he wins too.
Yes.
Because otherwise, all I've seen is a few matches either at pay-per-views or battle royales where he doesn't end up winning. He's getting his matches in on Dark, and he's doing a good job.
And another thing about Dark is that it shows off. So there's a lot of guys who do get onto Impact. A lot of not just guys, men and women who get on. Or did I say Impact? I apologize.
You did.
Yeah, that's a Freudian slip. But there's a lot of guys and gals who do get onto AEW Dynamite, but some of them are not there to put on necessarily a good match. A lot of them are there to be enhancement talent. They're there to do the job for guys like Lance Archer, Kenny Omega. I think he had a much talked about like 4 minute match on Dynamite where this kid, I think his name was Alan Angles or Angels, uh, where he kicked out of the V trigger, and a lot of people on Twitter just it for whatever reason. This particular match got them so upset, because, or at least it got a few people so upset. It's like there's like, I don't think that this dude should be kicking out of a V trigger, but then there's a lot of people out there who's just like, well, the V trigger is not a finisher, so it's. I mean, he's trying to make the kid look good, and Dave Meltzer ended up backing it up, which made a lot of people say even further that Dave Meltzer is an AEW shill, which is which is funny. It happens all the time, but yeah, AEW Dark is a terrific place to see some talent that gets a chance to work, and get some new eyes on who they are. I'm really happy for Brian Pillman Jr., who the son of legendary wrestler Brian Pillman, getting a chance on Dark. A lot of people on Twitter were talking that up and how they were excited for him, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the dude I was telling you about yesterday that was talking to Jericho on his show were friends, both from Winnipeg. That was Luther. He's wrestling as Luther.
Okay, I know who you're
Still
talking
got
about.
a kind of a psycho gimmick going on, so he was kind of entertaining to watch.
He was supposed to be part of the Nightmare Collective until they kind of took that away, because it wasn't doing very well on TV. So what have I been watching? I watched.
Yes, what have you been watching, John?
I watched a couple things over the last few days. I watched WWF Judgment Day 2000, which is a terrific show. In the year 2000 for the WWF, not only were they doing crazy good business wise, business ratings, merchandise, all that good stuff, this might be one of the best rosters they ever had during the whole Monday Night War era, where on this card, to go over this card, you had the opening match was Edge, Christian, and Kurt Angle, all as a team. And they cut an amazing promo before the show that is must see if you guys haven't seen it. Against Too Cool, which was Scotty 2 Hotty and Brian Christopher and Rikishi. And this place just completely, the roof blew off the place whenever Rikishi got the hot tag to come in, and he just the match itself is like a 3-star match, but the crowd just kind of elevated it, made it a lot more entertaining. And then you had your next match, which was kind of a cool down match, but listen to these names. It was Eddie Guerrero versus Perry Saturn versus Dean Malenko in a 3-way match that I don't think had like 1 second of rest for about 8 minutes. And it was just a freaking awesome match. Then you had the Big Show versus Shane McMahon. Two guys who have been very prominent both in 2019 and 2020. Funny enough. Matt. Oh, okay, Matt, you're still there. I wasn't sure. I thought your face cam froze on mine. I wasn't sure. They wrestled in a no holds barred match. Then you had Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho in a submission match, which was really, really good. Really stiff match for WWF at the time too. Both guys hitting each other with a lot of strikes, and you didn't see that very often back then. You had the Dudley Boys against the New Age Outlaws in it was Road Dogg and X-Pac in a tables match. You had Gerald Briscoe running around the entire building, fending off everybody because he was the hardcore champion. So he had like 5 really, really funny segments to where he just he saw himself in the mirror and punched the mirror and hurt his hand, which is that was a highlight of my night. And then the main event was The Rock versus Triple H for the WWF title in a 60-minute Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. So in my opinion, this is the best card that WWE put on in the year 2000. If you guys got 3 hours to spare, I would recommend going to go watch it. I don't think there's really a dull moment on the show. It's a really terrific show. The The other things I watched the 365 special on Ricochet on the WWE Network, which was pretty solid, but I don't know if really revealed all too much about Ricochet that a lot of us didn't know already. I didn't realize he was that good of friends with the Street Profits, but there you go.
I need to watch that still. I was interested in that, especially when I don't know if you've seen this latest Raw, but MVP brought it up as a way to try and divide Cedric Alexander and Ricochet up.
Yeah, I did read about that. I definitely read about that. And then I watched 2 Ricochet matches afterwards too. I watched the Ricochet and Aleister Black against the War Raiders from NXT TakeOver New York 2018 during WrestleMania weekend, which was a freaking bonkers match. Like, all these guys are like doing ridiculous stuff. Like, at one point in the match, like, there's a slow point in something in the crowd gets cheered, but they're like in the middle of a headlock, so it's just like, okay, we're staying in this headlock until we get the crowd back on us. And they did, and they just busted out all the strikes, all the high flying moves, the double team moves, all that stuff. Really, really awesome. And then I also watched from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Was it number 4? I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but it was Ricochet versus Adam Cole for the North American title. This is the one where Ricochet does he's going for like a moonsault off the middle rope, and Adam Cole super kicks him on the way down, which I need to find that GIF. But
I do remember that.
So yeah, that's what I've been watching. A lot of Ricochet and a lot of nostalgic WWF 2000 stuff. So that is going to segue into our next segment. And we should have had eye patches for this.
Yes, that'd have been a good gimmick for tonight.
So on Monday Night Raw, actually the next couple segments are pretty much the big important things that came out of Raw. Rey Mysterio won in some type of, I guess he won a tag team match, and he chose the stipulation for himself against Seth Rollins at the horror show at Extreme Rules. And it will be an eye for an eye match where the winner has to pluck out, steal, I don't know what they got to do, but they got to take their eye of their opponent or something.
Yeah. So here's my thought as I was going through this, because I was rewatching Raw, and Ray wins the stipulation. I'm like, okay, so what are they gonna do? Something that would benefit Rey Mysterio. So something like false count anywhere or something like that. And he's like going on a speech about an eye for an eye. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He's like, it's gonna be an eye for an eye match. And I'm like, what?
It's like literally.
Exactly. Like, they don't explain it, and they end the segment, and I'm like, what? I'm still like, what does that mean exactly? And then I'm like, well, they're calling this the horror show. I'm wondering if they're gonna try and be literal with that. And yeah, so like a day after I saw it, that WWE backs it out and backs up what we're saying, goes, yes, the eye for an eye match is going to end when one competitor plucks the eye out of the other competitor of their skull. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. What? Like I'm guessing one of two things. Well, I'm guessing mainly one thing here. I'm guessing it's going to be cinematic.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they are going to have this happen in some sort of way, and it's probably going to be Ray because his contract's ended, and I guess going to end his run with WWE.
I kind of got that sense too. I wish I wouldn't have known about the contract thing because it would make things more interesting.
Yeah, but you know what's funny is that he might still come back to WWE at some point and just don't forget that he had his eye gone. I can imagine that.
Hey, they forgot about the hacker guy on SmackDown, so they forget about a lot of stuff.
The- yeah, I'm somewhat intrigued just because of like how are they going to do this? How are you feeling about it?
Well, for the third month in a row, they didn't really do this with WrestleMania because WrestleMania, um, it doesn't really matter who's on the excuse me, it doesn't really matter who's on the show. CM Punk said it right. So where uh like he was arguing about being the main event of WrestleMania and stuff like that, where he said that or I'm trying to remember how exactly he put it, but like Vince told him like, well, no, The Rock's got to be the main event. He's the draw. And Punk's like, no, WrestleMania is the draw. People are watching WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania. You might get some extra because you get some of this, some extra stuff, but it's WrestleMania. So for WrestleMania, WWE promoted that as that. For Money in the Bank, they promoted the heck out of the most unique Money in the Bank ladder match ever. It drew some intrigue, at least from me. I watched it and I actually really really liked it. For Backlash, they did the promotion for Edge versus Randy Orton as what could the greatest wrestling match ever. As dumb as it sounded, I was just like, you know what? I kind of want to watch this. I want to see what they have up their sleeve. And you know what? It was just it was a 40-minute wrestling match, but it was really good. Um, and the WWE's doing the same thing. Like they call this the horror show at Extreme Rules, and it's just like it's kind of weird. But now I'm just like why are they really calling it this? I kind of want to take a peek. And now they do this, and it's just like this is something that we've never seen in the WWE. Although we have seen AEW, just not in the literal sense. And Chris Jericho and Tony Khan have pointed that out on Twitter, and it's been pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, but yeah, somebody in the comments also pointed out that WCW also did an eye for an eye match at some point.
Did they really? I need to look this up now.
Yeah, I need to look it up too to see what they're talking about, but yeah, for something so interesting and unique, it's surprising that I wouldn't remember it at all.
No. I kind of hope this was during the Vince Russo era, to be honest with you, just to see
You
what
know,
kind of wacky stuff that we see here.
yeah, that's almost what I'm about to say here. Well, first of all, I was going to say with the Extreme Rules being called the horror show, at first I was kind of like, that's weird. Why are they calling it that? And then my first thought was, okay, so Bray Wyatt's involved. He's going
Yeah,
to have a weirdo match with Braun Strowman, so I'm guessing that's going to be the horror show. But now they're adding this, and this seems to overtake or overshadow that match.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
and I'd like to see it go like honestly, I'd like to see it be cinematic and go way overboard, like somebody like literally uh, somewhat covered up so you can't really see it, but like supposedly really digging in there and like plucking it out and having like squirts of blood, just
Ugh.
like a water gun squirting blood out with a Seth Rollins sitting there with an eye dangling. I gotta put it in view. There we go. Eye dangling. Just ridiculousness. Even if it's fake, it'd be like even if it looks really fake, it'd be like obviously it would be fake, but even if it looked really fake, just the campiness of it would be so entertaining.
Yeah, I'm really curious what WWE has cooked up for this one. I thought I heard a rumor that this show was going to be TVMA. I don't know if instead of PG or TV 14, which is I think they usually do the pay per views at TV 14. Um, but I thought I heard a rumor that was going to be for mature viewers. And if that's the case, I'm just like, oh, I'm down. I want to see some over the top. Like I know it's fake. Sorry guys. It's but but I want to see something over the top. If you're gonna do something like that, you got to go all in on it, and
Well,
that's what I'm hoping for.
I think you had a really good point there with trying to intrigue people into being interested, and then hyping it up for their pay-per-views, and even not talking about where it's placed on the pay-per-view or what match on the card, but finding something that's going to intrigue us, uh, and even if you don't 100% deliver, like you said, the best match in the world. You did deliver in something that we enjoyed watching. And as long as you're not hyping something up like the best in the world and it absolutely is garbage, then we're going to keep coming back. Even if, on the other hand, if you do hype something up as being this amazing thing and it really falls flat, and that happens too many times, we're going to stop believing you. But they're doing a good job, at least with the main events here, and giving us something that's entertaining, and that's really what WWE wrestling and all this is all about, is entertaining us.
Uh,
And I like to be hyped, so I
yeah,
want them to hype me.
absolutely. Buster, is that guy's name Tom Savini, or is he just is he an actor? Because I know I've heard of Tom Savini, but I believe that's his name. But yeah, the guy who makes Bray's mask is a special effects legend. If they got some good workers on it, then I expect to see some good stuff as far as that goes. But you know what I mean? Like I said, I'm expecting. I don't know exactly what to expect, but I want them to go as over the top as they possibly can without it being so like unbelievable. Um, so unlike what we saw in NXT with Adam Cole versus Velveteen Dream, which I wasn't a big fan of, and the reason why is because I don't think they went that far over the top with it, and that way it just kind of came off as like it's just kind of like a weird, it's just kind of like a weird brawl. Whereas some of the other over the top stuff we've seen, it's been funny. Um, we've seen it be funny. We've seen it be executed really well. So I'm hoping it's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be one of the better ones that we get. But I, I can't say that I really know what to expect. Same thing with the swamp match too.
Yeah, I really don't know what to expect the swamp match. I don't have as good of expectations for that, but I'm open to be impressed, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we go from that, and then also on Monday Night Raw, we got to see the new United States title, which you know what I saw a lot of responses on Twitter, and they were not the it was not the most positive response, but I actually really like this belt. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, personally, I like the belt. I think it's an improvement. I'd say this is why I like it. First of all, with others' responses, I had initially, I mean, I didn't see a whole lot, but I had seen, positive responses, and then at some point, I was watching a live What Culture stream, where everybody was British, and they were hating on it, mostly mostly saying that it was too American for them. But it's the United States Championship,
yeah, it's
so
the U.S. title.
understandably, there's the U.S. flag on there. There's a big eagle. So I mean, that's what I expect. What I like about it, especially as a step up from the old title, is it seems more classic. It's a little less colorful. The old title just had a ton of red, white, and blue all over. This has a lot more gold and silver. It still has the red, white, and blue on there. It still has the stars, and it seems like a bigger chunk of hardware. I want to see a big slab of metal is what I want to see, and that's what we're getting here. And the old title, I'm sure it was metal, but when you have it painted the entire thing red and white, it seems more like a plastic sheet.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know what you mean by that.
and it's got the leather strap. It's more prominent. It's got the face plates that you screw into either side. Um, it's not the best championship in the world, but also it's a secondary championship, and it does not look like a prominent championship. It looks like a secondary. It looks dis- distinguished, yet not again overshadowing the main championships. So I think it's doing well what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I personally like it. So get to the chat here. What's going on, game Nats fan? How you guys doing? Do we hear that the ending of Cole and Keith Lee got leaked? I did. We're not going to be posting any type of spoilers. From what it sounds like, though, they did film multiple endings of that match. So, I mean,
All I've been hearing is the
never know
rumors.
what
I
you.
haven't actually read the spoiler because I do not want to be spoiled on it.
No, I understand that completely. Nats fan does not look like he is a fan of the belt. You also said that you had an old one signed by Jeff Hardy, which is that's
That's
pretty cool.
really cool.
Yeah. Um, Me personally, I really like the belt. I think the only thing I don't like about it, which I did see a few people say that they didn't like, was the big champion font, like the big letters of champion. Um, I don't mind it. I think it looks fine. I actually did like the original, or not the original, but I
The
like
last one.
I like the WWE's version of the U.S. title. Believe it or not, they premiered that title in 2003. Eddie Guerrero was the first winner of the WWE United States title whenever they brought that back from the dead. Um, and aside from whenever John Cena had it and had the spinner U.S. title, which we're not going to talk about because that title sucked. um, in my opinion, I actually really, really like this one. What I'm really happy about is that it's not just another belt with a giant WWE logo as the big main plate, because I'm sick of seeing those. Because, like, the WWE title at first, whenever they did it, it's just like, okay, I like it. I like the main big WWE belt, and then they did some other ones with it. I'm just like, it's like, you guys don't have any other ideas. And of course, then they say, oh, if we got plenty of other ideas, and then they premiered the 24/7 title. It's just like, oh gosh. So
Yeah, the 27. Yeah. I as much as I'm okay with the 24/7 title, is very lackluster.
it looks like a giant clock to me, which I think is supposed to be the case.
Yeah, it looks like a giant wristwatch to me, to be honest.
Yeah. It's better than the TNT title. I agree with that. I'm not a big fan of the TNT title, although they do say that it's not finished.
Yeah, I need to wait and see what it looks like when it's finished before I feel like judging it.
Yeah, me
Right
too.
now, it's kind of a hunk of silver.
Yeah, but no, I like it. I think it's a pretty solid belt. Um,
We'll have to think of some designs for our own belts. What we would do for a belt. I would go over the top with it. Maybe, if Cena won this title, he could take both of the face plates on the sides and make both of those spinners. You have a double.
no more spinner belts. Why the spinner belts?
Actually, I hate the spinner belt so much.
Yeah,
As much as I hated it.
I mean, I think a lot of people look back at the old spinner belts and were just like, nope.
It was such a
for
thing
me.
of the time, and even at the time I wasn't a fan of it. But at the time, spinner hubcaps were like everybody had those. I even uh, was dating a girl whose husband or I was dating a girl whose father
Whose
had
husband?
those. Yeah, that'd be a whole nother story.
Jesus.
I was dating a girl whose father had spinner hubcaps, which I thought was kind of ridiculous, but that's how big they were at the time. It was kind of, at least in Missouri, it was kind of a trashy thing. Not that I personally think it's trashy, but that was kind of the stereotype it got.
Yeah.
But I think it played towards the WWE and the C Nation audience, at least at the time. Because I know Cena kind of that was that around when he was transitioning from being the rapper to the
Just
family Cena.
just regular old hustle, loyalty, respect. Please turn heel, John Cena.
Yeah, so that was more of a callback to when he was more the rapper Cena.
Right.
Enough about the spinner though.
So am I watching Fyter Fest tonight? I'm actually really interested in both main events. We'll get into those here in just a bit, but I will have both shows on. I wish I had two TVs so I could watch both shows at the same time. Who do I? Once again, we'll go over the Great American Bash Night 2 as well as Fyter Fest Night 2. We'll be going over that here in just a bit. We've got one more subject to talk about, and that is the unknown status of one Kairi Sane. We talked about this last week, and there was rumors out that she was possibly going to be working for WWE in a Japanese ambassador role. And then within that week, there is I believe they were promoting Bailey versus Asuka, with Bailey being, or Sasha Banks being in the corner of Bailey, and Kairi Sane being in the corner of Asuka. And then there was reports that came out that Kairi Sane's contract is done. She's leaving. She's going back to Japan. She's going to retire in a year. And then for the Raw, for the Raw advertisement, they took Kairi Sane off of the advertising on Monday and said, make sure to watch Bailey versus Asuka in a champion versus champion match, with Kairi Sane nowhere on the advertisement. And then Sasha Banks has a match with Kairi Sane on Raw. So what is? None of us know what's really going on. This is probably the most interesting backstage thing going on at the moment right now.
Yeah, I watched Raw a couple days after it aired, and I guess I watched it yesterday, so a day after it aired. And I was surprised to see Kairi Sane. I didn't know that she was on the match. I hadn't heard. I was just like, what is she doing there? You know, I thought she was still injured or whatever. But yeah, it's very confusing, I guess. And yeah, the last thing I heard, again, this would be through What Culture, they were saying that her plan, as far as we know right now, is to go back to Japan, not to sign a new contract, go back to Japan, mostly to be with her boyfriend or husband.
Her husband, yeah.
Might wrestle a year or two there, but otherwise retire. And when I saw Kairi Sane on Raw, especially fighting against Banks, I assumed it was just going to be a squash match. She was going to get squashed, but I can't remember how the match actually ended. But I remember it being a good match in general, not just definitely not a squash, and not just a boring run of the mill match. It was actually fun and interesting.
No, I think I believe, I'm not sure if there was a winner. I think it ended in a disqualification. So both Kyrie and Sasha Banks got protected a little bit, which is good for Sasha. I think she should be protected.
The thing too, I don't think that Vince would care as much, because usually he cares about when people leave, because he doesn't want them going to competition.
Right.
I don't think he's concerned as much about Kairi Sane going to AEW or something like that. But on the other hand, if he is concerned, or if for some reason he wants to keep Kairi, he could always bust out the money bags. That's what he likes to do to people who threaten to leave. Generally, it seems like if you're going to leave the company, it's going to be on his terms, not yours.
Right. Offers out the big 5-year contracts to guys like Gallows and Anderson, and then releases them during a pandemic in April.
FTR.
Or FTR. Yeah, FTR is another example of that. I personally think that Vince is going to try to keep Kairi on board. I don't know what Vince really thinks of Kairi Sane as a performer. I don't know. There's not much out there about what he is, what his thoughts are on. Nothing really has been revealed about Asuka and Kairi Sane personally, but
it's true, and it's kind of interesting because especially when people's contracts are coming up, you always have thoughts from Vince that are bleeding into the media.
Yeah. Like recently, Vince McMahon apparently went on the record and said that Matt Riddle reminded him of a Shawn Michaels, which, if anyone knows the history of Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon, that is about as high. Michaels might not have been the biggest moneymaker that Vince has ever had, but if you go back and listen to some of the commentary and listen to all the stuff that Shawn got away with, dude, Vince loved that man. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, exactly like you said. Just hearing from so many different people, including Shawn Michaels himself, he literally do anything he want, and he was not just being belligerent for the sake of being belligerent. He was being belligerent because he knew he could, and he felt like pushing those boundaries with other wrestlers, with himself, and even with Vince, knowing that Vince wasn't going to do anything about it. which thankfully HBK has kind of turned his life around since then. But imagining anybody having that kind of control or over the company, like I guess I don't know if you consider Cena still part of WWE, but even if
Nah, not
Cena,
so
like,
much anymore.
yeah, I know that's why it's not a great example, but I think even if now if Cena just decided to be belligerent in that same kind of way, I don't think Vince would have anything to do with it, and that's probably about the biggest star. I don't know, I guess you could say maybe if Roman Reigns wanted to do stuff, although I don't know if that's even true either because Roman Reigns, I mean, has been taken off of the show's opening and not talked about whatsoever. And you kind of wonder, is that because he's got heat from Vince or whatever from not showing up?
I personally think he might have a little bit of heat, but it's misguided. I think that once Roman comes back, then he'll be fine.
Yeah, I kind of, I'm somewhat interested. I'm not wishing that he was back, but when he does come back, I'm interested to see what they do with him. If they're going to start him at the bottom, if they're going to publicly punish him, or if they're just
Uh,
going to start trying to shove him down everybody's throats again.
I think it's gonna be that last option.
It could be, and I hope not, but we'll see.
So back onto the Kairi Sane situation. What do you hope that she stays in WWE, or would you like to see her in AEW or even a place like Stardom in Japan?
So here, these are all good options. So I like seeing her, even in a diminished role that she has on Raw/SmackDown. And here's the other thing too: is that WWE's main roster women is very, very thin. It's like a skeleton crew right now, not just in terms of talent, but even number of people that they have. And they don't seem to be too excited about pushing anybody into the roles that have been vacated. They're just kind of like, okay, we only got 3 people now, then you're going to be the only 3 people that we put in any prominent role.
Yeah.
Somehow they have no creative direction for Shayna